we may try to avoid that existential truth, how mortal, how vulnerable, how dependent we are. But it's going to pop up eventually. So like you find yourself sitting there on the floor of the Home Depot, realizing, look how vulnerable I am, right? My body can just let me down at any moment.
Any moment.
Yeah, and it will happen. It will happen. We don't want to face that. Pascal, he had a more famous quote from that book, which is all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Right? Ooh, I like that one.
I like that one.
Yeah. In other words, yeah, if we could sit quietly in a room alone, then we might actually, turn off all the distractions and begin to feel who we are and where we are and what our situation is, and hopefully it goes still deeper. This is what I assume, what these Vipassana meditation retreats are all about, where you have to, for 10 days, you don't talk, you sit alone all day. People are, afraid of doing that. And we get these, we distract ourselves in so many ways, but the programming within the universe, right, is that if we can choose to do that. We can choose, what, I'm not going to look within. I'm going to distract myself. It's a little too serious. It's a little too grave. I don't feel like I'm ready to handle, the seriousness of my situation. It's kind of like, they say, like the ostrich hiding its head in the sand, right? There's a danger coming for us all. We're all going to feel that vulnerability sooner or later, but we don't want to think about it. We hide the head in the sand. But no, the yogi is saying, I'm going to take my head out of the sand. I'm going to look deep within myself. I'm not going to just distract myself. I'm going to stay focused and not become diverted. And then we have, if we choose to be diverted, then the universe is saying, okay, you can choose diversion, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a fool of you. It's a merciful thing.
Try to get this picture of a grown man sitting on his butt at the checkout in Home Depot.
That was a gentle one that the world did you, Raghunath. But
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Today is Wednesday, May 8th, 2025. Thursday, May 8th, 2025. And this is episode 1595. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, everybody. Woo! We took a little emergency day off.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to mention it, but... that was my bad. I was in Home Depot doing something Home Depot-ish.
Okay.
Buying hinges for my new fence that I'm building.
Okay.
And I felt very peculiarly lightheaded. And I was just like, this is weird. I feel lightheaded.
You were floating in a most peculiar way?
Of sorts. Okay. And then I was like, man, I feel really weird. I'm in Home Depot, and I start walking towards the register. I just remember Mara at Govardhan Hill, who had a seizure, and I was like, oh, my God. Ever feel something different in your body? Like, my body's never felt like this. Anyway, maybe you haven't, but I was like, my body's never felt like this before. Could I be getting, something about to happen? Am I going to pass out? So I just sat down. It's almost like ridiculous, but it's one of those things where you crash the threshold of I don't care what anybody thinks of me, and they just like
sat down
on the floor by the cash
register.
Like
a bag of gravel or something to sit on.
No, like on the floor, like while they're checking people out.
In aisle 18, we
have a man laying down on the floor.
Man.
And well, also I was like, I hadn't eaten anything since 3:00. I've been doing intermittent fasting, so I've been like closing my fasting window.
Oh, I didn't know you were fasting. That's probably had something to do with it, Rogo.
Well,
But he had 2 meals,
hmm.
and it was like, you know,
Anyway, I
5
can
or 6.
fast a long time. I don't think. Anyway, my point being,
Yeah.
I immediately thought, you know what? I just grabbed anything. I'm very, very, very specific what I put in my mouth lately. But I was like, I'm gonna pass out maybe. And I grabbed a bottle of Gatorade off the shelf and just started guzzling Gatorade, sitting on the floor like a
Homeless man.
dehomed man. And
Homeless Depot.
I was like, I was gonna call, so I called Mara, and Mara does not pick up her phone. She's having like a tea date with her sister here, I was like, she's not picking up her phone. She's not picking up her phone. So I call Sachi Sutta, and he's getting his hair cut. And I was like, Sachi, he's like, can I call you back in 5 minutes? I'm getting my hair cut. And I was like, Prabhu,
Dying.
something's happening to me. I'm at Home Depot, not far from your house. He's like, okay, I'll come right over. And then I was like, wait a second, why am I waiting for him? He's just going to have to bring me to it. And so I had to call 911. I had to call 911. And I went from sitting inside Home Depot to sitting right in front of Home Depot while the ambulance came.
Because the feeling just wasn't going away.
It wasn't going away. And I started like shivering. And I didn't know what was going on. And then
your feet
anyway,
were
to make a
tingling,
long
you
story
said, right?
short, 7 hours later in the emergency room, it's like everything seems to be fine. All the major things we're worried about, they're like, is it a stroke? You know, they're like, nope, not a stroke. Is it a heart attack? Nope, not a heart attack.
What about
they
blood
did all
sugar?
these. They did blood sugar. Yeah, they did everything. I didn't know what it was. So
maybe it was a devotional thing, some kind of special.
could have been spiritual ecstasy,
ecstatic
people.
feeling.
Let's lean into spiritual ecstasy. What do you say?
It's the only thing left.
I asked
We've eliminated all other possibilities.
I asked them, is this spiritual ecstasy? And they're like, oh, we're not positive. We're
No.
not positive about that. You're going to have to bring in a Mahabhagavat to decide if it's spiritual ecstasy. Anyway, so we had to cancel the show because me and Mara didn't get home till 4 a.m.
Oh, man.
Mara just sat with me in that emergency room.
I did
called me-
eventually answer my.
You called
Yeah.
me. Oh, what happened? Say again?
Oh, I just said I did eventually answer my phone, but Rago was already in the ambulance on the way
Yeah,
to the hospital.
Rogo called me from the ambulance.
Yeah,
Sounded very calm.
he
Very
did.
relaxed.
I agree.
And then he
And
had me
that-
call you,
yeah.
but you didn't answer.
Oh, that was when you called me. Yeah,
I said, bring my headphones, bring a charger, and bring my Govardhan Sheila. Those are our 3 instructions.
Not necessarily in that order.
I was like this, and all those thoughts are going through my head. Like, this is really how I'm going to leave my body in a Home Depot. Oh man.
All right. So
Anyway,
how did you feel
that's why we
yesterday?
missed the show yesterday.
After you slept and woke up and everything, how did you
After I
feel?
slept and woke up, it was Ekadasi, so I fasted on Ekadasi. Maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah,
But, you know what? I had to wake up early. I don't know why I had to wake up early. I had to feed the animals, and then I took a 5-hour nap. And anyway,
All right.
I
How are you
think
feeling
you're a
today?
little run down.
I'm a little.
think you
I
need
don't know.
some
Maybe I'm a
food.
little run down. Maybe I
think,
need to
Raghunath,
eat something.
I think maybe it's just, your clock has been telling you for some years now.
It's time to die.
No, it's time to slow down.
It's-
You get back from India, you run off to Europe, you do this, you go back and forth. Maybe you gotta just tone it down a little bit. What do you think, Mara?
I agree.
I think you got to lead a full life. And if Krishna wants to take me, then he'll take me.
You see, that leads us into our nugget, Raghunath, that a full life necessarily means
This whole ambulance thing was a lead into our nugget, actually.
Okay, all right. Well, let's
It
check
really
in with Mara.
is. It really is.
Okay.
When I read
Let's
the
check-
nugget this morning, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have to get
All right.
vulnerable.
I hope you didn't think I was trying to imply something about you by choosing this nugget.
No,
Your
I
mind
didn't.
works that way. You said, "What is Kaustubha saying about me?"
No, I just thought it was cruel fate
Okay, all right. It wasn't me.
that this was the
Not cruel Kaustubha.
not cruel Kaustubha, cruel fate. Like, okay, that's the nugget today. That's where we are in the Bhagavatam. It's like you open the book and it goes right to something you need to hear.
Okay.
One of those.
Well, maybe something we all need to hear. But before we hear that, let's hear from Mara if there are any announcements today.
Enlighten us, Mara.
Yeah, our registration for our spring retreat is live on our website, wisdomofthesages.com. And the spring retreats are right around the corner, and we still have some spaces left. It's May 23rd through 26th. And then also, by the end of the day today, we're going to have Registration posted for our Light on Wisdom training in India at Govardhan Eco Village, January
That's right.
11th through 23rd.
It's happening again, India. Boomba!
Yeah.
Wisdom of the Sages training that goes on for half the trip from the middle of January to the end to the Flower Festival. Beginning, we're doing the Kirtan training. So if you want to come for the whole month, you can come. We're also going to end up taking people to Mayapur like we did last year. You could just hang out, miss the whole winter, come with us to India. Try to keep the prices very reasonable. And of course, we're having the 200, 300 hour yoga teacher training with it's very, very bhakti infused. So that's also happening.
Yeah,
So-
and we also swapped the dates this year of the Mridanga School and the Kirtan Academy, so people now can do Kirtan Academy and then stay for the Light on Wisdom training.
Yeah, if they want to do that.
Yeah.
All right.
All righty.
Why don't we
that's
have
the
Mara
latest.
read the nugget today?
Oh.
Look at Raghunath. Look at his face. He's like, but.
No, I'm not thinking anything. I'm
Yeah.
just like barely made it out of bed today.
Okay.
Okay. Don't think I have ulterior motives floating around in this head.
I haven't read this yet, but this is from Blaise Pascal.
Do you know much about Blaise Pascal, Mara?
I don't.
Raghu?
It's Louis Pascal's like
No, that's
hateful
Pasteur.
hateful
Raghunath.
brother.
I think you're thinking
Louis Pasteur.
Louis Pasteur.
No, he was a French mathematician, physicist, inventor, and deeply contemplative Christian thinker. He lived in the 17th century.
It's amazing how this, if you were to say name 13 people from the 17th century or 25 people, we could barely remember them. We could barely pull out 25 people. Yet
Well,
we think
some
our
of us-
life is
There's other people.
okay. All right, 100 people. We think our life is so important. We're going to be forgotten not in 300 years. We're going to be forgotten like 40 minutes after our funeral. We're going to be forgotten. Anyway,
They may be saying nuggets from you, like, think it through, Raghunath.
Yeah.
think it through.
Come
He lived
on.
Back in the
Come
21st
on,
century.
Raghunath. Let's get it on. Raghunath and the UFC announcer.
All right. So Blaise Pascal says the only thing that consoles us for our miseries is diversion.
Yeah.
God.
And yet
yes.
this is the greatest of our miseries.
Oh.
For it is this which principally hinders us from reflecting upon ourselves and which makes us insensibly ruin ourselves.
Ooh.
Without
Ouch.
this, we should be bored, and boredom would lead us to seek a more solid way out.
Ah.
But diversion amuses us and leads us imperceptibly to death.
This one is so relevant.
Hell,
Relevant
heavy.
in my, I won't even say it's relevant in all our lives. I'm going to say this is so relevant in my life.
Okay.
Now, I will say to give myself a little bit of an out, but not really. Because it's a very big ask. If you stumbled upon this podcast like, this looks interesting, I need to get more spiritual. The Bhagavatam is a very big ask. We're not asking people to be sort of spiritual. We're not asking people to be religious. The Bhagavatam is not asking for us to go to church on Sundays or Saturdays or visit a temple. The Bhagavatam's ask is become fully God conscious. That means every waking moment be God conscious. That's a big ask. I've got other things to do. I've got a family. I've got children. I've got sports. I've got hobbies. I've got all these other things to do. And you're asking me to replace all of them. So it's a very, very high bar. And what we're trying to do in this podcast is give people a taste for increasing how many, spiritual pebbles we put in our sack, eventually trying to fill the sack, so to speak, that we are fully God conscious. And as we sort of clean up our act, which a lot of us have, clean up our act, we get rid of the real diversional things, the stuff that can really sink the boat. We start to realize, you know what? Yeah, I like being this new person, this new upgraded version of myself. And there definitely are some diversions that are much more tragic than other diversions. There's some diversions that can actually just wreck your life. There's some diversions that can, let's just use an analogy. Like, suppose I want to be an Olympic athlete, an Olympic swimmer, say. So you can, swimmers people who are like training for Olympics, they're incredibly focused on what they do. They practice their swimming before school starts. They swim after school. They swim on the weekends. They swim on holidays. It's just like an intense amount of training. It's abnormal in one sense, but that's what they're asked to do. So there's some things they can do that can divert themselves from swimming. Probably school is, probably school courses that they struggle with. But of course, those school is like a useful thing in your life generally. But then there's other diversions, like they can start to drink, eat very poorly, or they can take intoxicants. And the problem with intoxicants is they can become very addictive. They can be things like people's personal finances or their sexuality or their spending. These things can be addictive. They can run outside of the parameters, and they can really take a person off their really main focus. So there definitely are some diversions worse than other diversions. But the highest is we are 100% focused on our spiritual life. So that was to give me an out, but but at the same time, just being in that position yesterday, we're sitting on the floor of the Home Depot. I was just like, you know what? This is what was going through my head. I'm not fully God conscious. I can't remember what I was listening to on YouTube, but it wasn't the Krishna book. And I was like, you know what? I am going to put the Krishna book on right now. So here I am sitting on the floor of Home Depot, like, with red Gatorade all over my lips and my chin, and listening to Amala Bhakta Swami read the Krishna book and then Krishna and the whirlwind demon, playing that as loud as I can, while like people are like 3 feet away from me checking out, purchasing, rugs and, 2x4s. And no one even say, that's another weird. The lady at the checkout was not like, "Are you okay, sir?" No one even looked twice at me. But anyway, there are diversions that I need to take seriously. And if anything, even while I was sitting there, I was like, hey, time to level up, Raghunath. You are dropping the ball here. Krishna's given you everything. He's given you the treasure map, and you refuse to follow the map. So this is like the only thing that consoled us of our miseries is diversion, and yet this is the greatest of our miseries. For it is this which principally hinders us from reflecting upon ourselves, and which makes us insensibly ruin ourselves, right? So good is the enemy of great. That's a big one. Good is the enemy of great. Is it so bad that I was listening to comedy, or I was listening to some, something that is sort of entertaining, but not necessarily congruous with pure devotional service? It's not evil, but it's the enemy of the highest thing. If there is a final, like say the final race, okay, the training's over. Now it's the time for the swim meet or the Olympics. And are you prepared? Or are you diverted? Anyway, I'm looking at Parurava, we just finished reading about. We've seen him begging for Urvasi. And when she's after she's not even interested in him. And it's not like the falling in love makes us act like fools. It's we waste valuable time in so many different foolish ways, so many diversions. Anyway, I'm just going to stop there.
Okay, right. Well,
Before I take over the entire show.
Well, I think, it's not just that we're diverted, but it's what we're diverted from, because Pascal wrote this in a book called Thoughts, right? I forget the French name of it, but in translated English, it's Thoughts. And he has like this core thesis in it that we're deeply restless. And we're constantly freeing from stillness and silence, because being alone reveals the emptiness, that this existential emptiness that we experience. That the fact that we're mortal, that we're vulnerable, that we're dependent beings, that we don't like to face that, and to avoid feeling that emptiness, we distract ourselves through in so many different ways. And so his point is that it's not, these diversions are not only masking our suffering, but they're preventing us from doing the work, the inner work that we need to do, that's going to lead us to truth and lead us to the real peace and the real satisfaction and the real happiness. Your experience is something like that. Like we may try to avoid that existential truth, how mortal, how vulnerable, how dependent we are. But it's going to pop up eventually. So like you find yourself sitting there on the floor of the Home Depot, realizing, look how vulnerable I am, right? My body can just let me down at any moment.
Any moment.
Yeah, and it will happen. It will happen. We don't want to face that. Pascal, he had a more famous quote from that book, which is all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Right? Ooh, I like that one.
I like that one.
Yeah. In other words, yeah, if we could sit quietly in a room alone, then we might actually, turn off all the distractions and begin to feel who we are and where we are and what our situation is. And hopefully it goes still deeper. This is what I assume, what these Vipassana meditation retreats are all about, where you have to, for 10 days, you don't talk, you sit alone all day. People are, afraid of doing that. And we get these, we distract ourselves in so many ways, but the programming within the universe, right, is that if we can choose to do that. We can choose, I'm not going to look within. I'm going to distract myself. It's a little too serious. It's a little too grave. I don't feel like I'm ready to handle, the seriousness of my situation. It's kind of like, they say, like the ostrich hiding its head in the sand, right? There's a danger coming for us all. We're all going to feel that vulnerability sooner or later, but we don't want to think about it. We hide the head in the sand. But no, the yogi is saying, I'm going to take my head out of the sand. I'm going to look deep within myself. I'm not going to just distract myself. I'm going to stay focused and not become diverted. And then we have, if we choose to be diverted, then the universe is saying, okay, you can choose diversion, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a fool of you. It's a merciful thing.
Try to get this picture of a grown man sitting on his butt at the checkout in Home Depot.
That was a gentle one that the world did to you, Raghunath. But I think, like with Pururava, it was like really like, that he's begging for Urvasi. He's in front of her, And the 9th canto, before we get into that 10th canto, which is coming up quick, before we get into the 10th canto, we're being shown a few visions of the foolish materialistic person and how we have to make that turn. So we heard about Pururava, and then we have we're going to jump ahead a couple chapters now, actually, a few chapters, because there's again this whole lineage coming down, lots of names and so on. And we're going to come to chapter 18th, which tells the story of King Yayati. And this is a famous story too, King Yayati and Devayani, their love and the jealousy between Devayani and Sarmista. These are it's in Mahabharata, it's in the Puranas. Another story that's all over the place. Another story that illustrates how we can act in incredibly petty ways, how we can distract ourselves in so many ways. Yayati is going to be shown to be a fool too. He's going to have a happier ending eventually. But it's only through being made a fool of and realizing, he sort of hits a rock bottom in a sense and realizes, what am I doing? There's more important things. And we'll see his son, Puru, becomes glorified, like historically, like the lineage becomes known, his name becomes like a prominent one in this incredible lineage because he wasn't distracted like that. He was very dharmic and clear. So we're getting a lot of stories like this, but I think we all do have to ask ourselves, how distracted am I?
It'd be a good homework. Okay. everybody sort of listening to this podcast. Of course, I see everybody on Zoom every day. These guys are definitely focused. There's plus there's others out there listening to the podcast. Write a list today or during the show while you're what is really distracting me from pure devotional service.
Yeah.
And how much of those are like red flags? Like, this is a very big problem. This because there's certain things we can get into that really drift us far away, and they're complicated and they complicate my life. Which things, they're things I have to do. They're things I have to do within this world that are not necessarily, they're distractions, but it's also part of my dharma. I'm raising children. I got to bring the kid to soccer. I got to bring the kid to pick up the kid from soccer. Go on.
Well, my point was, I agree with you that first, the first things we got to eliminate are those things that are like not only distracting, but like particularly, addictive or problematic.
Sure.
For sure. But Bhagavatam, even Pascal was saying that we even become distracted in noble things, like doing noble work.
Sure.
And use that as a diversion from really looking within and understanding oneself.
Sure. It doesn't mean we have to do nothing and sit in the temple and just think all day long. We can still be out in the world. And the whole Bhagavatam is people being out in the world. They're kings, they're heroes, they're, big movers and shakers. But their dharma is not, it's not disconnected from their purpose.
That's the point. Everything has to become connected to that higher spiritual purpose. And if you can do that, then
we just grew up
everything that you're doing.
We just grew up in a world where there was no purpose. It was just like survive, make some money, find a girlfriend, and enjoy life. So once you put purpose in there, like, oh, this map has there's a direction on this line. We're supposed to be heading this direction. Purify your consciousness. And then we're like, oh, okay, this will work well with it. This won't work well with it anymore. This doesn't either. Okay, but this will. So we have to be like that, and we have to sort of connect the dots to get to our end game.
Okay.
All right, you want to let's go. Let's go
okay,
there.
So we're at chapter 18 now. Look at Raghunath. Oh no.
Home Depot. Narayanam namaskrityannaram chaivanarottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we start in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki, by regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees. All that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Mudatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. From obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Where are we starting today, Baba?
Chapter 18, text number 1. Chapter 18 is entitled King Yayati Regains His Youth.
King Yayati regains his youth. Is he taking some type of longevity herbs?
No. But I think we can move fast here, Raghunath, too, but it's going to start off, it's going to be interesting stuff. There's a lot of, things get real petty.
It's a material world. It's a petty place, huh?
Yeah.
You get petty real quick. Text 1, Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, as the embodied soul has 6 senses, King Nahusha had 6 sons named Yati, Yayati, Samyati, Ayati, Viyati, and Kriti.
Now, what happened with Kriti?
Couldn't he get a rhyming name too? Did they run out of Atis?
Okay.
Imagine, hey, I already, whenever I call my kids, I'm always like, Rocco, Rooney, short, but it's like I already can't say the right names. So imagine if all their names rhymed.
Oh, it'd be tough.
I've called my kid Gus once, like the dog. Okay. I got to mix in the dog's name with one of the kids.
It's starting here because we've been coming down a whole lineage, right? It's from Pururava. He had his sons that he had through Ravasi, and they had sons, and they had sons, and they had sons, and now
Yeah.
we came. The last chapter ended with Nahusha. Now we're hearing Nahusha has 6 sons.
We're basically flying down the highway of this family tree, and every now
Yeah.
and then we take an exit and we talk about one of these kings and one of
Exactly.
the sons or grandsons or great grandsons of the
And
kings.
and
What
eventually
was
we're going
their
to take
story?
and eventually we're going to take a huge exit, which is the 10th canto, which is all about Krishna, because Krishna is going to appear in this dynasty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, text 2. When one enters the post of a king or the head of a government, one cannot understand the meaning of self-realization. Knowing this, Yati, the eldest son of Nahusha, did not accept the power to rule, although it was offered by his father.
Okay. That kind of goes against what we were just saying.
Yeah.
But in other words, the principle is that it's very difficult. You're very easily diverted from spiritual life if you're a king, because you're going to be there's going to be so many distractions and so many diversions, political ones, responsibilities, as well as enjoyment, as well as opulence, enjoying opulence. So
Sure.
he said, I don't want to accept it. And I think he hands it down to either to his brother or to his sons. Let's
Well,
see.
there's a scandalous verse coming up.
Okay.
Because Nahusa, the father of Yayati, molested Indra's wife, whose name is Sachi, who then complained to Agastya Muni and other brahmanas. These saintly brahmanas cursed Nahusa to fall from the heavenly planets and be degraded to the status of a python.
Okay, that's a big drop.
That's a big drop. You go from heaven to a python.
Earthly python.
Yeah. Consequently, Yati became the king.
Okay, so his son becomes a king.
Where's your father? Don't ask. I mean, I wonder if he immediately became a
Take
python.
it to my terrarium.
Hare Krishna. I wonder if he died and then, like, the Bhagavatam tells us he died and became a python, or if he immediately, his body just turned into a python.
Sounds like he just became a python.
And he's like wearing the clothes of his father, but he's
by slithering.
he's slithering away. Anyway, they don't explain these things in the Bhagavatam. Anyway, King Yati had 4 younger brothers whom he allowed to rule the 4 directions.
Okay.
Yayati himself married Devayani, the daughter of Sukracharya, and Sarmishta, the daughter of Rishaparva, and ruled the entire earth.
Okay. This becomes a big story.
I'm excited, Kaustubha. You're coming over today. You're going to see all the peacocks. They're pretty darn big. I'm only mentioning that because there's so much bird noises happening outside our window right now. It sounds like I'm in the tropics.
Squirreling off here.
Maharaj Prickett said Sukracharya was a very powerful Brahmin, and Maharaj Yayati was a Kshatriya. Therefore, I am curious to know how there occurred this Pratiloma marriage between the Kshatriya and the Brahmin. It's sort of like a mixed marriage.
Yeah. Pratiloma in particular means that the woman is coming from a higher status than the man.
Yeah.
And that's an unusual. Usually these marriages were arranged within the same social
Community.
status, community.
In India, they call it a community.
A community.
Yeah.
And but if there is some mixing, it's usually like I suppose the psychology is that the woman wants to marry a man from a higher status rather than from a lower status. And so here we have an example of a woman. She's Devayani is the daughter of Shukracharya, who's like a brahmana. Why is she marrying a Kshatriya? Why is she marrying a warrior? It sounds unusual to him. This is like we're talking yesterday when we said, like, I was attached to this girl who was like 2 grades higher than me, right?
This is in high school. This isn't.
Yeah,
recently.
it would be one thing for a high school guy to date a girl that's like younger than him. But
yeah, that
usually,
was always sort of like a lower. You're gonna date a sophomore? Are you kidding?
But for a guy, it's less of a big deal. It would be more unusual for a girl to date someone that's younger than her, 2 grades younger.
Yeah.
Okay. So in any case, he's asking about that. How did
There's
this happen?
always like a mental status going on.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You can't erase that. It's just there in the mind.
It's there. It's like we were saying, like again, we were going back to these dating apps and all that. Like generally, if you ask 100 women, would you like seek a partner that makes less money than you? Majority of women are going to say no. I'm looking for men at
But
least.
Mara said yes.
Okay, there's the exception. But it's unusual for a woman to want to be, seek a partner that's less materially,
Mary,
affluent than them.
Mara needs some therapy, I think. You're marrying
Really?
down, Mara. Don't you get that?
It's a pratiloma relationship here. But if you ask
It makes me laugh.
but, but if you ask 100 men, would you seek a partner that makes less money? Practically all of them would be like, yeah, no problem. So there's a different psychology there. Any case, Maharaj Pariksit is inquiring, how did this happen? I'm interested. Tell me this story. Now we're going to hear about it.
Sukadeva Goswami said, one day, Rishaparva's daughter, Sarmishta, who was innocent but angry by nature.
Uh-oh.
ever have one of
Innocent
those
but
daughters?
angry by nature. We're angry by nature. It's a new rap trio.
So she was innocent but a little angry by nature. I can understand. Sometimes you get a teenage girl, they're just angry. You know? Was walking with Devayani, the daughter of Sukracharya, and with thousands of friends in the palace garden.
Yeah. So Vrishaparva was a king.
Yeah.
So Sarmishta was a princess. Devayani was the daughter of a Brahmana, Shukracharya.
The garden was full of lotuses, and the trees of flowers and fruits was inhabited by sweetly singing birds and bumblebees.
How lovely.
When the young lotus-eyed girls came to the bank of the reservoir of water, they wanted to enjoy by bathing. Thus, they left their clothing on the bank and began sporting about, throwing water on one another.
Okay.
While sporting in the water, the girls suddenly saw Lord Shiva passing by. Whoops. Seated in the back of his bull with his wife, Parvati. Ashamed because they were naked, the girls quickly got out of the water and covered themselves with garments.
I think maybe they should stay in the water.
Yeah, I would go deep into the water and get a straw and breathe through the straw. Sarmishta unknowingly put Devayani's dress on her own body, thus angering Devayani, who then spoke as follows.
Okay, so here's a petty incident, right? Hey, you put my clothes on? And even the circumstances were unusual, right? Because everyone was like a little rushed.
Yeah, it wasn't like I just went into your closet and put on your dress.
Yeah. All right. Well, here
It
we
was
go.
like a little bit of an emergency.
Here we go.
Right. Oh, just see the activities of this servant maid Sharmista, disregarding all etiquette. She has put on my dress just like a dog, snatching clarified butter meant to use for sacrifice.
That's
Ooh,
a bit.
what an insult.
That's
She's been, it's as if she thought about that insult and then been saving it up for an occasion just like this.
Dog. And it's kind of showing her own ignorance, because she's thinking I'm the oh no, hold it, let me get this straight. Sarmishta, which one is the son of the daughter of Devayani is the daughter of oh, I gotta remember his name now. I'm losing it. Of the sage, Shukracharya.
Yeah.
And Sarmishta is the daughter of the king. And so Sarmishta, the daughter of the king, put on Devayani's dress. Okay. And so now Devayani's angry. And she's got a, Shukracharya, he can curse and everything like that too, so she's got a little of that in her. So she said this really, it was a simple mistake. And she came on real strong like that. You thought they were friends, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now she's going to pull this whole status thing.
We are among the qualified Brahmanas who are accepted as the face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmanas have created the entire universe by their austerity, and they always keep the absolute truth within the core of their hearts. They have
Apparently not always.
Yeah, not now. Hello. They have directed the path of good fortune, right? When your ego's hurt, default to I'm better than you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
They have directed the path by nature. I am better than you. They
Mhm.
have directed the path of good fortune, the path of Vedic civilization. And because they are the only worshipable objects within this world, they are offered prayers and worshipped even by the great demigods,
Yeah.
the directors of various planets, even by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul, the Supreme Purifier, the husband of the Goddess of Fortune. She's pulling rank status. Don't you know who I am?
But even in Bhagavatam, she's doing it by like speaking all these deep truths about the universe.
I know.
Right?
And not like far off. Not far
Yeah.
off. We say Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahman. Like
Yeah.
Lord Krishna worships the cows and the Brahmins.
It's not off at all when she's saying that, but just
Yeah, but
the way she's
the
misapplying it.
problem is, yeah, if you're actually a Brahmin, you're not pulling rank on people.
You're tolerant.
You're
kind.
tolerant. You don't accept. Sometimes we
Oh,
meet
someone
like,
put on my clothes. All right, no problem.
yeah, you're tolerant.
I
You
got
gotta
God
act like a
situated in
Brahmin.
my heart. Why would this disturb me?
Yeah. And we are even more respectable because we are in the dynasty of Brigu. So not only are we Brahmins, but we're like high grade Brahmins. And
High level.
there are like even nuances of Brahmanas.
Hmm.
Yet, although this woman's father, being among the demons, is our disciple, she has put on my dress exactly like a Sudra taking charge of Vedic knowledge.
Okay, they are just.
Is
I wonder how
Sudra.
old they were.
Who knows?
Whew. Rare.
Rare.
Okay.
Don't you know who I am? When thus rebuked in cruel words,
Hold it.
when
Where
thus
were
rebuked
you?
in cruel words, text
What verse
15,
are you?
15. Sarmista was very
okay,
angry.
You skipped the Shukadev Goswami said.
Yes, I'm trying to read this dramatically, and you keep butting in like a narrator. Come on.
Well, the narrator's speaking now.
I
You
know
need
the
to know
narrator.
that.
Well, I'm
Okay.
speaking as if I'm a narrator. I've
All right.
changed my tone of voice. This is a dramatic reading, Kaustubha.
I need to know who the narrator is, though. Shukadev Goswami. It could be Sutta Goswami. I don't know unless you let me know.
When thus rebuked in cruel words, Sarmishta was very angry, breathing heavily like a serpent and biting her lower lip with her teeth. She spoke to the daughter of Sukracharya as follows.
Oh, this is going to be heavy.
Here we go. You beggar.
Oh, now you
Since
see
you
right
don't
there.
understand
You see
your
the thing is,
position.
right? Because the kings, they conquer and they tax the citizens, and whereas like the sages, they live off the donations, right? That's considered higher, but in her mind it's lower. Like, oh, you're just a beggar. Your father begs from my father, right?
Right.
You beggar.
So cool.
Yeah.
Bunch of teenage girls fighting like this. Ouch. This is like a high school.
Yeah.
High school stuff.
You beggar. Mean Girls.
Mean Girls. There's like a movie made out of this. You beggar. Since you don't understand your position, why should you unnecessarily talk so much?
Oh.
Don't all of you wait at our house depending on us for your livelihood like a bunch of crows?
Here.
Using such words, Sarmishta rebuked Devayani, the daughter of Sukracharya. In anger, she took away Devayani's garments and threw Devayani in a well.
That was, you see, she took it to it went from words.
Don't mess with these Kshatriya girls.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, we're the Kshatriya girls from Syracuse.
Oh, no, actually, using Samishta rebuked Devayani, the daughter of Shukracharya, and Devayani's took away Devayani's garment and threw. No, Devayani is the. You're right. Yes, the Kshatriya girl threw the Brahmana girl into the well.
I mean, it's hard to throw a Kshatriya girl in a well. They can fight, the Kshatriya girls. The Brahmana girls are just like doing rituals all day.
All right. Oh, they went. From,
I've tried to throw Kshatriya girls in wells. It's not easy.
But this goes. It went from in the mind to through the words and then body. That's why we have to control body, mind, and words. It just started getting more and more extreme. Threw into the well. All right.
With words saturated with love and I'm sorry. After
throwing.
throwing Devayani into the well, Sharmista went home and left her in the well.
Yes.
Meanwhile, King Ayati, while engaged in a hunting excursion, this is King's hunt, went to the well to drink some water and by chance saw Devayani.
And here we go.
Seeing Devayani naked.
Here's the love interest developing now.
Seeing Devyani naked in the well, King Yati immediately gave her his upper cloth. Being very kind to her, he caught her hand with his own and lifted her out. So it wasn't a deep well. So it wasn't as bad as throwing a person to a very deep well. That's very bad.
Yeah, somehow.
But it gets interesting, like later in life, when they're like, "Well, how did you guys meet?" Well, it's a crazy story. I went to get some water, and
Well, Lord Shiva was she was taking a bath with
long
her
story. I got to
friends.
fight with this guy. Got to
She
fight
was
with one
taking
of
a
my
bath
friends,
with her
and she pushed me in a well,
friends, with her friends, so-called friends, right?
and I was naked in the well. The king came to the well.
All right. So he
20.
puts it's important that he said he caught her hand,
Yeah,
because that's what happens traditionally in the marriage is the boy and the girl, they're for the first time they put their hands together,
yeah.
and that's symbolic of marriage. When
Oh,
when the
okay.
woman accepts the man's hand, would you accept my hand in marriage?
Put
So
your hand in the hand of the man. Is that a religious song?
yes, it's a very religious song.
It is. And Chief's like, yes, it is, Raghu. Read the lyrics.
Read the lyrics.
Okay. Seeing Devyani naked in the well, King
No.
Yati.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, you read that already. But
Okay. Text
caught her by the
22.
hand, lifted her out.
With words saturated with love and affection, Devyani said to King Yati, "O great hero, O king, O conqueror of the cities of your enemies, by accepting my hand, you have accepted me as your married wife."
Well, hold it. Slow down.
Whoa. I was just helping you. What, do you want me to leave you in the well? Let me not be touched by others. For our relationship as husband and wife has been made possible by providence, not by any human being.
Okay.
Because of falling in the well, I met you. Indeed, this has been arranged by providence. After I cursed Kaka,
Gotcha.
the son of the learned scholar Brihaspati, he cursed me by saying I would not have a Brahmin for a husband. Therefore, O mighty armed one, there is no possibility of my becoming the wife of a Brahmin.
Okay. So
Right.
his initial reaction would be like, "But you're a Brahmana and I'm a Kshatriya. I don't know if this can work."
And she's like, nope, it'll work.
It's the only
It's
thing
been
that's gonna work.
ordained.
Yeah, it's been
She's
ordained.
almost been waiting for something like this. And for her, it was like, yep, I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
My astrological chart said it.
This is why I got thrown in the well.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I get it. I've had those moments, especially recently. I've had these moments where I was just like, oh, I get it. All that stuff I was struggling with was exactly what I needed. I understand why that happened. I understand why there was loss, betrayal, heartbreak, loss of money. I understand it. It was so painful at the time. That's what our life is about, reflecting about things like this. And this is what she has done here, Devyani. Okay. Thereafter, when the learned king, Sukadeva Goswami continued, because such a marriage is not sanctioned by regular scriptures, King Yati did not like it. But because it was arranged by providence and because he was attracted by Devyani's beauty, and she was naked, he accepted her request. Thereafter, when the learned king returned to his palace, Devyani returned home, crying, and told her father, Sukracharya, about all that happened because of Sharmishta.
Mm-hmm.
She told how she had been thrown into the well, but was saved by the king.
He must have been like, "Oh, my dear."
Let's see what Sukracharya says about this. As Sukracharya listened to what had happened to Devyani, his mind was very much aggrieved, condemning the profession of priesthood and praising the profession of unchavritti, of collecting grains from the fields. He left home with his daughter.
Okay. So that's meaning that there are different types of brahmanas, and some are the very renounced ones. He's a brahmana that gets donations for performing ceremonies, right? I do the rituals for the king. The king gives me some riches, and that's how I live. And he's saying, and because of that, I have a wife, I have children, I get all these worldly responsibilities, and now I'm dealing with this, right? My girl was friends with the daughter of the king. Now they're fighting. This creates a whole tension between me and the king. It's a whole big thing that I got to work out. I don't want to bring my mind to all this petty stuff. But because I don't live a more simple life, I have to get caught up in all of this stuff.
Continuing on. Now, King Rishaparva understood that Sukracharya was coming to chastise or curse him. Consequently, before Sukracharya came to his house, Rishaparva, Rishaparva went out and fell down in the street at the feet of his guru and satisfied him, checking his wrath.
Okay. It must have been like they had like people like on the outskirts of the kingdom or whatever that would like inform the king of who's coming, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so they must have seen Shukracharya's coming. And now the king is like, oh God, my daughter got in a fight with his daughter. Now he's coming here. He's got mystic powers. He can curse me. And so he's going to say, I'm just going to let him know right off the bat that I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry that my daughter did this. I'm sorry that this whole fight took place. I'm your servant, right?
The powerful Sukracharya was angry for a few moments, but upon being satisfied, he said to Rishaparva, my dear king, kindly fulfill the desire of Devayani, for she is my daughter, and in this world I cannot give her up or neglect her. After hearing Sukracharya's request, Rishaparva agreed to fulfill Devayani's desire, and he waited for he awaited her words.
No.
Devayani then expressed her desire as follows.
Now listen to this.
Whenever I marry by the order of my father, my friend Sarmishta must go with me as a maidservant along with her friends.
Oh, come on. Why, you found the man of your dreams. It all worked out.
But still, you won't let go of this little petty.
Let go.
Mm.
All right.
So Sarmishta is the daughter of the king, right?
Yes.
Okay, just clarifying that. Rishaparva wisely thought that Sukracharya's displeasure would bring danger and that his pleasure would bring material gain. Therefore, he carried out Sukracharya's order and served him like a slave. Daughter Sarmishta to Devayani, and Sarmishta served Devayani like a slave, along with thousands of other women. This is the old "I'll teach you."
Yeah. So you can now Sarmishta's experiencing the consequences of this fight. They both let it escalate, and there's really serious consequences. But the story's not over. Maybe we ought to stop
And
here.
it happens like this in material life. Like one person, there's a petty type of bitterness and tit for tat and spite going on, and then some karmic chance one gets above the other and like, okay, I finally won this. I'm gonna rub your face in the dirt. You know, and you don't actually win, you lose because you've become so hateful. And the person who's getting their face rubbed in the dirt, they're hating and they're like in a weaker position. This is the material world, and it happens with humans all the time. But because I live in a bird community here at Super Soul Farm, where I'm dealing with like 4 sets of species of birds, there is definitely going on in the animal kingdom.
Pecking order.
Yeah, there's a pecking order. It's happening. You see this so much in the animal kingdom, but we are living in the animal kingdom. And the Bhagavatam say, hey, you want to be a bird, be a bird. You want to be an evolved being, you have a chance to step out of your own pecking order. We can step outside of our caste, so to speak, our conditioning, so to speak. But right now we're going to look at even royalty is caught up in this pettiness.
I was thinking a nugget from The Honeymooners. Did you used to watch The Honeymooners?
Yeah, I didn't like it. Did you know that The Flintstones was based on The Honeymooners?
Obviously.
Well, I don't know. Not obviously. Some people don't.
Obviously.
Some people. Mara doesn't even know what the Flintstones are.
No, I know the Flintstones, but I didn't watch the Honeymooners.
Yeah, the Honeymooners.
You never saw The
you couldn't even-
Honeymooners, Mary?
You couldn't even play The Honeymooners anymore. It's so politically incorrect.
Is it?
He starts off by saying, "One of these days, right in the
Oh, yeah,
kisser,
that's
like he's going to punch his wife."
That's definitely, that's true. But because he was a bus driver, Jackie Gleason, and his friend Norton worked in the sewer, right?
Oh yeah.
And down in the manholes. And he said, you got to be careful how you treat people on your way up, because you're going to see the same people on your way down. That's something I learned working in the sewers. So there you go.
We've become old where we're commenting shows. We're
These are
giving
nuggets of
purports
wisdom.
of shows that were on when still everything was in black and white. That's how old we are.
Honeymooners was like probably the first show or something like that. right?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we got to start updating. We got to start watching what the kids watching it just to be
I
relevant.
think that's a distraction from our facing deep
You're
within
gonna have to
ourselves,
tie it
our
into bhakti,
own
brother.
mortality.
You're gonna have to tie it into bhakti.
Which brings us
Which
to our
brings us to our
next-
nuggets, our takeaways, rather.
Takeaways, yeah.
Some diversions are tragic.
Yeah. Yes.
Sitting on the floor of Home Depot reminds us to stay spiritually focused.
Mhm.
Rub it in.
Level up,
Rub it in.
level up, and follow the treasure map.
I did have my bead bag on me, so now I looked even weirder. I'm
Got a red
sitting on the
beard.
floor, spilt with Gatorade on my beard, and playing Amala Bhakta Swami's Krishna book reading on an iPhone loud, and
Chanting
have
desperately.
malas in my hand chanting. I must have looked like it. I must have looked insane.
Did you really
Imagine
think you were
if you
dying?
walked into Home Depot and just saw me there.
Did you really think you were dying?
Well, no, it wasn't that I was dying. I was like something. It was like a
Like a
sensation
stroke
in
or
your
something?
body, like this could be a stroke. This is the age where men just like something happens and they die.
Right.
So I didn't like. It's not like I'm a kleptomaniac. Not a kleptomaniac. Hypochondriac.
Oh.
Kleptomaniac is when
Well,
I
you
start.
did steal the Gatorade.
I did steal the Gatorade. Actually, maybe I am a kleptomaniac. Because as I'm getting dragged in the ambulance, I was like, I never paid for that. Never paid for that. I just drank it.
Back to our takeaways.
Yeah, okay.
No, you got to go back and pay that. Otherwise, you have to take birth again just to buy that
Just to take
Gatorade
birth.
from the CEO of
Imagine that. I probably do.
Home Depot.
I have to take birth. Okay.
Good is the enemy of great.
Good is the enemy of great.
We're deeply restless and want to avoid facing our mortality.
Yeah.
Take your head out of the sand and stay focused.
Take
Pull
your
it out.
head out of the sand and the man. What is that song about? About
Put your hand in the
Jesus?
hand of the man that walked the water. That's Jesus. Put your hand
put
in
your
the hand
hand.
of
So
the man
shake
that
Jesus'
crossed the
hand.
sea. And then they say something about from
Take
Galilee.
a look at yourself and you can see further.
Put your hand in the
honestly.
hand of the man
Someone
from
put the-
Galilee.
Yeah, someone put that on the board. Everybody was religious back then.
They used to show that on like Hee Haw. They would be singing that song, right?
I can't remember. Hee haw.
Okay, man.
When we
Mara has no clue.
when we choose diversions, material energy makes a fool of us.
It sure does.
What are our distractions from bhakti? And which ones are red flags?
Write it down, people. Come on, do that today. Write that down. After you go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review and tell us why you love us.
To me, even the bigger thing is like, look at your hours in the day. In this past hour, how much of it was engaged in diversion, and how much of it was really connected? You know.
Yeah. That's why japa is so interesting, because during japa we have nothing else to do but chant the holy name.
That's right. But the
And
diversions.
Where
take
is our
over.
mind?
Yeah.
Where does our mind, like, I don't want to say naturally, unnaturally go to?
Mm.
Yeah.
It goes to diversions. And so we're in a practice. This is a practice of not being diverted from the main thing.
Dang.
Brahmanas don't pull rank, they tolerate.
Okay.
Ooh, Milaki.
Simplify your life and avoid the pettiness.
Yeah.
Simplify.
And
And
don't mess with Kshatriya girls.
they are tough.
They're tough girls. Tough. They fight back. They'll throw you in a well. I went to throw a Kshatriya girl in the well. She threw me in the well.
Don't put on their clothes either.
No. Been there, done that. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Remember, Wisdom of the Sage Retreat and
Women's clothes.
Wisdom of the Sages wisdom training in India. Join us in India in January. Registration's up for the wisdom training on the
It's gonna be.
wisdomofthesages.com.
It's gonna
It's
be.
gonna-
It's not,
by
it's
the
not
end
up.
of the day.
The other trainings are on my site, raghunath.yoga. It'll be another great year. Traveling through the holy places, doing holy things. And you know what it is special? It's a chance to not be diverted. And that's the beautiful thing about going on pilgrimages. We try our best. our atmosphere is connected with divinity. That's another special thing about pilgrimages. Everything you look at is reminding you of Krishna, not diverting you from Krishna. You know?
That's a
Like in
great
America,
point.
I go to the temple. I get on the subway and I take the subway to the temple. But on that ride, there's so many diversions. You know, you get to Mayapur, everything's reminding you of the temple. Everything is reminding you of Krishna. You get to the Govardhan Eco Village, everything is reminded. The food's reminding you. The people are reminding you. The trees are reminding you.
You don't get diverted.
Yeah. And so it's all practice. It's all practice.